Hi everyone, my name's Michelle and I'm Mama Loves You GB here on FlossTube, but also over on Instagram and Etsy as well. Welcome to the Sunday morning briefing. How's everyone's week been? It's been okay here. Yes, we finished for half term and that makes everything perfect. We are looking like half term's going to be a bit of a washout, I'm afraid, but today was lovely. I've got some friends coming to stay at the end of the week. And I'm just a bit conscious about getting the house all up together and everything for them to come and stay. And Chris was like, no, come on. It's the first day of the holidays. It's probably going to be one of the only nice days. So we went down to the river and Chris and Ness went on their boards and I sat and stitched for a little while. And then we had a bit of food afterwards and it was really, really nice. When I got a freezer as well, our freezer packed up. We have a freezer in the garage, a big freezer in the garage, and it packed up, but it packed up in the most bizarre way. It literally packed up shelf by shelf by shelf by shelf. So it's a big freezer and it's probably got about 8 shelves. So I'm down to the bottom 3 shelves now, actually holding any frozenness, any temperature, any coolness. And yeah, it's bizarre. It started a few weeks ago and I was like getting stuff out the top shelf. I was like, that's a bit soft. So obviously we then had to throw all that away. And then the next shelf was fine. Okay. And then a couple of days later, the next shelf would be a bit soft. And it's been stable as the bottom 3 shelves for a couple of weeks now. So I think it must have kind of like 2 compressor sections to it. But anyway, there was a freezer going locally. Somebody had it for a holiday let or something like that, so it hardly had any use. And so we went and picked that up today. So that was all right. Because freezers are expensive, especially pig freezers. They are really expensive. Anyway, I digress. Thank you to everyone who has bought Elizabeth's bird. Here she is, all framed up. Isn't she lovely? I'm so pleased with her. And I showed her to you last week, but she wasn't framed up. I had the frame, I just needed to do the work and get her framed up. So this is a piece of old gold by Fibre on a Whim, a 32 count, because I wanted to use 2 strands and get the really, really bright colours on her. But I'm also really tempted, I've got some 48 count, and I'm really tempted to do her really small. Might be quite an interesting thing to do. But she's so beautiful. So this is the original. There we go. Now, I'd said last week that I didn't know how this original one, let me just put this down, had been stitched, because it's stitched on silk and it didn't feel like there was anything in between. And a few people mentioned the idea of a waste canvas or something similar. Now, I must admit, I probably thought that waste canvas was something a little bit more modern. But of course, they must have had something similar. And somebody mentioned for monogramming and marking, doing more decorative work on clothing and things like that. So yeah, they must have had something similar. That's the only way that I can think of, is that there was another grid and that Elizabeth was then able to remove the grid from underneath the stitching. But it's fabulous. I've used soluble canvas before, but I've never used waste canvas. So that is the original. And for those of you who weren't here last week, it's called Elizabeth's Bird because the stitcher's name is on the top here. Now, I couldn't go back into my Etsy. Well, I could, not Etsy, eBay. I could go back into my eBay, but the listing's gone, so I couldn't see it. But there is a surname there, but I can't read it anymore. I'm sure I did know what it was at one point in time. So, Elizabeth's Bird. And I'll give you another look at this one here. Now, I should have brought up my own chart, shouldn't I? It is available in the Etsy store. All the details for my Etsy store are down in the box below. And I'll put the stitch count on the screen here. It's not very big. It's something like 133 by 111 or 113, something like that. I should have printed my own chart and brought it up. But I'm so pleased with her. And this is just a thrifted frame that happened to fit brilliantly, that I painted and then I just kind of distressed up a little bit. And this is something that I think a lot of people are really getting into doing now, because framing is just so expensive. So the number of stitchers that I know that have a little stock of frames that they've picked up in charity shops and sort of various other car boots and things like that, and just keep them in the garage just for this very purpose. Now, I used a spray black paint on this. I took the slips out, which were gold. I took the slips out and just used a spray black paint on this, and then I sanded back the edges just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of wear, and then I waxed it with a clear wax just to give it a nice bit of a sheen. And it really does, you know, it's really cost effective to do, and we all want to have everything finished, and it is nice to have things framed. So definitely keep your eye out for some frames that you can thrift. Now, I know there is a few stitch alongs already going on with this. Now, I knew this would appeal to Kim, who is Contented Needleworker Kim. She's got her own FlossTube channel. She is a prolific stitcher. If you want to go and see anything stitched up, then go and see Kim's work. It's absolutely amazing. But she has a particular penchant for birds. So I knew that she would be straight on with this one, and I know she's doing it with a couple of her friends. I'm gonna have to look at their names now. Krista, the wildflower stitcher, and Christy, who is Oaky Stitches. So yes, there is plenty of stitch along, so you can get this in my Etsy shop at the moment, and I have got a little discount on in my Etsy shop at the moment. It's a case of if you buy 2 or more charts, then you get a discount, and I think it's 15% discount, which is worth having if you're going to buy 2 or more charts. So I think a lot of people have been stocking up on the little owls and things like that as well. Now, I'd also shown you that I had another little bird, which was this one. Now, this one didn't have anything on the frame, and I was going to show you the frame, and I picked it up and it just fell apart on me. So this is the other birds that I have got in my collection, and as you can see, the colours on the back are really quite different to the colours on the front. I'm pretty confident these are silks. I'm pretty confident that the stitcher that stitched this was younger than the stitcher that stitched this one, just because of the sort of design and the colours chosen. Imagine if you were a little girl and you had all of these colours at your disposal. You would, wouldn't you? You'd just pick the purples and the blues and the reds. And this is what she looks like. Surprise! I managed to stitch her up, and I'm trying to not to get the shadow from the frame, because I've gone with a really big chunky frame for this one, and again, it's another one that I've thrifted and painted. So there is the other little bird. Now, I'm going to call this chart the Little Blue Swoop, and the reason that I'm going to call this chart the Little Blue Swoop is because when Ness was younger, she found it really hard to tell the difference between a swift and a swallow. And so she just called them all swoops because of the way they just flew around the garden. So this is obviously some kind of swift or swallow type bird with those big long tails, but I think it's the imagination of a little girl. So this is called the Little Blue Swoop. And there she is. She's painted. She's stitched on the same fabric. And don't they look great together? Let me show you them together. She's stitched on the same fabric, whoops, as Elizabeth's bird, and she's quite a bit smaller. I have to try and remember what this one is, and I can't remember. Again, I should have brought up my own chart. This chart is available in my Etsy store, or will be very shortly, later on today. I'm hoping to have it in there for when you see this video, so you can just go straight away. So hence why you might want that. Buy 2 charts and get a discount, because don't they look great together? Really, really great. What you could do is if you take a photograph, a screenshot of the chart for this, you could flip it and print it out. So it's flipped, so the bird's facing the other way. So you could, if you wanted to display them on the wall together, facing the same or facing opposite to each other. That would be fun, wouldn't it? But I'm going to leave mine, or I've decided to leave mine the way they are, because I'm sure there'll be other birds. I'm sure there'll be other birds that I need to stitch. Now I'm holding this one gingerly because it hasn't got a back on it. That's the trouble sometimes with thrifted frames. They don't always come with a back. But I just love the fact that she is in this frame. She's got so many beautiful colours in the leaves and also in the bird itself. I'm really, really pleased with this one. When I charted it up, I wasn't sure how it would come out because it was really hard actually working from this to see how it was going to come out. I almost had to hold the chart quite a distance apart to even count the leaf threads or the leaf stitches, because the closer you get, they almost pale into the background colour. So it was really difficult to tell. And it was actually really hard to count on the back at all. It was impossible, in fact, to count on the back. There's just such a depth of thread there. So there we go. There's the little blue swoop. So that's 2 birds in 2 weeks. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. But she's just such a joyful little bird. This is 32 count, as I said. They're both 32 count because it was the same piece of fabric. Whoops. And I got both of those on a fat 1/8 with no trouble at all. No trouble at all. Plenty of margins. And I think they look lovely on the same fabric, but I'm sure they'd look fabulous on any fabric that you chose. So go and have a look in my Etsy store. It's the perfect time to be stitching birds, especially antique birds. I don't want to put it down. I don't want to put it down. I've really enjoyed stitching those two. Really, really enjoyed. Okay, okie dokie. What else have I got? And what else have I done? I have started, I forgot to bring that up, 2 new projects. I have started, and I showed you this down at the river last week. Let me just finish that stitch off because that's always helpful, isn't it? I started another Mill Hill Santa. So I've literally just got his boots, or one boot. Boots is a little bit ahead of the game, isn't it? And some of the snow, and there is some beading on there as well. I tend to bead as I go because, and I don't know why, when I look at a Mill Hill chart, and you all know what a Mill Hill chart looks like, I can count my way around the various different colours that I need to use. But I find it nigh on impossible to leave gaps for beads. I don't know why, because it's just a symbol. It's the same symbol, or it's the same as a symbol for a stitch. But I find it really hard not to bead as I go. So when I stitch a Mill Hill, I only ever use the beading needle, and I just bead as I go. Mill Hill recommend to use 3 strands on this paper, which is 14 count. I only ever use 2, so hence why the 2 strands do fit through my beading needle, and I can just stitch and bead as I go. I think you'd struggle to get 3 strands through the eye of the beading needle, because when they get you to bead, they get you to use less strands, but I just use less strands all over. I think it's fine. I'll put a picture of it up because I didn't tell you what it's called. It's a Timberline Santa, and it's the Douglas Fir Santa. So there's 3 in the set, as it were. So it'd be nice to get some of those done for Christmas. And while I'm talking about Christmas, I do have a Christmas freebie. Now this is from the Homespun Needlework Facebook group as well, but I would imagine you can find it other places, because this is a Cricket Collection mitten. Now I'm going to have to hold it back here because there's not a picture of it. Now the Cricket collection did a whole big range of these different mittens. A lot of them were freebies, but a lot of them were an extra on the back of a chart as well. So if you go back and you look at your Cricket collection charts, you will probably find a mitten on the back of quite a lot of them. But there is a whole big load of freebies out there to be found. This one is from 2012 and was again reproducible by for non-commercial use, so but it meant that shops could give it away for free. But this one is in the files of the Homespun Needlework group as well, which I think a lot of you may have gone on and had a little look at. So you could stitch that up as a little mitten itself, and people do make them into these sort of little tiny mittens, almost like you would make a little tiny stocking and hang them on the tree. Or you could stitch it onto perforated paper. Sorry, I don't want to show you that close. Stitch it onto perforated paper and stitch it there, and just have it as a little ornament in the same way that you'd have a little Mill Hill Santa. So I haven't decided which way I'm going to do it yet. I have wanted to stitch some of these mittens for a very long time. They only use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one's 9 colours. And invariably they're always quite, not big numbers of colours. What else have I stitched on? I have stitched on my stitch-alongs. I know, calm down. Not my own stitch-along, but other people's stitch-alongs. So I have started the first part of the Lola Crow, and I didn't bring it up with me, which is annoying. The Lola Crow first exhibit, which is part of the Deadly Aquarium stitch along. So please do arrange those words into some sort of a sentence. I'll put a picture of the Deadly Aquarium frame, and I'll put a picture up of the first exhibit. My goal was to finish the frame by the time the first exhibit came out, and as you can see I didn't quite get there, but I do have enough done. And I was watching I think it's Kenny Stitches the other day, and he was talking about it, and he said, oh, she'd said that the first exhibit was going to be down in this corner here. So I thought, phew, I've got enough done to do the first exhibit. So it is an eel coming out of a treasure chest with a skull and a diver's helmet there. So this is what I was sat by the river stitching. There are some outlines of some birds there, some seagulls. And I hate calling them seagulls. And every time I am at work, a work colleague of mine always calls them seagulls. I'm like, they're not seagulls. There's no such thing as a seagull. But they are gulls. So there we go. It was quite funny actually, because another colleague of mine was asking me about samplers, and he was just asking me general chit chat, and he asked me about whether you could tell whereabouts a sampler was from by the style of it. I was like, well, yes, you can. And so I started talking. Another colleague of mine said, I forget you're weird. He said, sometimes I think you're really normal. He said, but then I realise you're just as weird as the rest of us, which from one scientist to another, that is a compliment. Love being a bit weird. Let the weird flag fly. So hopefully that's not too much more stitching there. It's quite small and it won't take much more. And then I'll work on getting the rest of the frame finished, because that was joyous. To be able to open the stitch along on the day it was released with all the threads and ready to go was a joyous experience, and one that I want to have every month going forward. It might even be every 2 weeks, I can't remember. And then I did another stitch along. Now this is the Love Poppet stitch along that Claire from Love Poppet kindly gifted me the threads and the fabric for, although I have changed the fabric. The fabric that it came with was a 32 count even weave in sort of like an antique cream, And I got this, which is a very pale green, from West Green Loft Yarns. Yeah. I don't know why I struggle with that so much. And it's like a pale green. And I thought, oh, that might work. And I have to say, pale green is not a colour that I normally reach for. So if I've got something that I think is going to work on it, I'm going to do it on it. So we have had, this was an absolute joy to stitch as well, an absolute joy. I stitched this up last night, and I've got the little sort of back stitch bits of this top piece of cow parsley, or whatever it is. Is it cow parsley? It looks like cow parsley to me. I was going to say gypsophilia, but I don't think it has the sort of umbrella sprays. That was so lovely to stitch. Really enjoyed that. I don't think I'm going to need this full fat eighth, but I thought I'd start in the middle because it was pretty much the same size as the piece that came in the pack. And I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know how I'm going to finish it. So I've left myself plenty of space on that one. I've got a couple of little purchases. For those of you that get the Fox and Rabbit fabric, it has cleared customs, which usually means that I'm going to get it in the next couple of days. We've got a bank holiday weekend here, obviously, in the UK. So I'm thinking it'll be with me Tuesday or Wednesday. Right. Little purchases. A couple of little purchases. Now, I have been watching some FlossTube. And most recently, I have been watching Sally from Flossie Sews and Grows. And she's been talking all about her 50 for 50 SAL, which is where she's doing 50 starts because she's 50. It almost makes me wish I was 50, because I was like, I want to be doing that. I want to be, 50 starts. That sounds good. It sounds something I'd like to do. And then I realised how many I've actually got already. But I've been thinking about it. I think maybe when I'm 49, which is, how old will I be this year? 45. I'll be 45 this year. I think the year that I'm 49, I need to maybe do 50 finishes of things that I've already started, so that when I'm 50 I can do 50 starts. So I've been watching that, and she showed her finish of the Moonshine Cabin by Modern Folk Embroidery. Whoops, there we go. Now this wasn't something that she'd started, but it was something that she'd finished, and it looked great. And she said she'd done it on, I think, 32 count chalkboard or charcoal by not Weeks Dye Works, Zygarde. And I was like, I've got some of that. So that was like an open door. I was like, you're leaning on an open door there. And then, so yeah, I quickly add to cart and printed it off when I got home. Because one of my big jobs this week has been to tidy up the prep rooms. We lost our technician back in January. She went to another job. So things have been a little bit, there had to be some tidying. So I've treated myself to a couple of FlossTube episodes at work whilst tidying and cleaning and that sort of thing. So yeah, I was watching Sally. I also watched, though not at work, Jen Lee. She did 24 hours of cross stitch. It was like a 3-hour episode where she went back and showed all her finishes from like the last 3 years, all the ones that are waiting to be finished. Oh my goodness. If you want just to sit back and really watch some great stitching with a pen and paper in your hand, because you are going to want to buy all of that stuff, then that is an episode not to be missed. They're really fabulous. If I had a hat, I would have taken it off. It's great. Who else have I been watching? I've watched Kenny Stitches. I've been watching Flossie Sews and Grows. I've watched Made by Michelle McGraw. She had another episode out fairly recently. Jen Upton. Who else have I watched? Brenda and Laura. I'm halfway through their most recent one now. I'm sure there's someone else that I meant to talk to you about, and I've forgotten. I'll make a list. I'll make a list for next week, because no doubt during half term I'll have had the chance to watch a few more. I have also got the latest instalment of the house series, which is the Tree House. We are on series 6, or on Yeah, it says series 6. I have stitched none of them, not one, not even taking one out of the packet. I think I know what I want to do with them once I've stitched them, but I haven't stitched any yet. This could be a long burner, folks. This could be a long burner. And then the other thing that came today was my Fox and Rabbit fabric. Now, it was a fabric of the month. It's gone to fabric of a quarter now. This is Fibre on a Whim 32 count oatmeal. There we go. Isn't that lovely? Ooh, it's got some greeny bits to the bottom there. So that's one side. The other side. It's always worth double checking both sides of the fabric because they can look quite different. Anyway, I am going to leave you now and hope that if you are on half term, certainly it's bank holiday, as I said, here in the UK. So I'm hoping that you've got a bit of extra stitchy time and a bit of extra time on your hands. I'm going to leave you with a last little look of the newest one, the little blue swoop. I'll see you next week. Stay classy, Stitchers.